G'day there. My name is Leon. I'm an artist in Sydney and I live alone and I spend most of my time alone in the art studio. I've had many years' experience of depression and suicidality and I've been hospitalised many times because of that. As COVID approached, I realised I needed to put some strategies in place, otherwise it could have been a train wreck. And very paradoxically, this has been one of the happiest, healthiest periods of my life. I ask you, what are the positive lessons from this year and how can we embed them in society from today?
Before we go to the panel, what did you do? What did you change?
I knew well-being was my first priority, full stop. I knew I had to make nests. I had to clean my house and make it a nest. I realised that being in a crowded pub was much more alienating than being alone in a studio, having a meaningful time, so meaning was important. And I had to stop drinking.
Okay. And you're feeling good for it?
Yes.
Great.
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Hugh, how do we embed all of these changes, if they're positive for us, in the way we live going forward?
Yes, I think the pandemic, of course, has been appalling for people who've contracted the virus, and it's been troubling for people whose social isolation has morphed into loneliness. But there certainly are some silver linings, and I think we can say that one of two obvious benefits. One is we've all had a bit more time to introspect, a bit more time to look inside, and to examine whether we like ourselves, to examine whether this is the kind of life we want to be leading. The very kind of point that you've just made. I mean, artists and writers and so on are peculiarly vulnerable to these dark passages that we've just been hearing about. But here's an opportunity has been an opportunity around the world for people to get in touch with their inner self, to get in touch with their inner life and say, well, who am I? And do I like the kind of person I'm becoming? And if not, what could I be doing about it? I think that's one byproduct of the pandemic. The other obvious one is that it's reminded us that we are indivisibly interdependent, that we all have the sense of ourselves as unique and independent, and that's kind of our outer shell, all to do with the differences between us. But below that, beneath it, deep inside ourselves, we know that we are actually interdependent. We belong to a species whose members are completely hopeless in isolation. We need it. I mean, you think you're all alone, and then you discover you need a litre of milk, and you haven't got a cow, and so on. So you're dependent on other people to do all sorts of things to make your life possible. And the coronavirus, of course, has told us that it's only interested in the species. It's not only invading Buddhists or women or rich people or anything else, everyone, because we are an indivisible species. And I think one of the most positive things to come out of the pandemic is for us to realise how profoundly we need each other. And in particular, I think at the very local level. I think one of the great benefits of this experience for us, like the experience of the Great Depression in the early 1930s, was to remind people of the crucial importance of the local neighbourhood. I mean, we wring our hands about the state of the nation and politics and the church and all those things that Sarah mentioned, but actually the state of the nation starts in our street. This is where we make the connections. This is where we remind ourselves that humans need humans, and the people we actually live amongst are the most immediate, the most obvious example of our interconnectedness.
But Hugh, if you're in Melbourne right now and have been in lockdown for a second time, that may not be possible. I mean, Sarah, do you understand this need that so many have had, single people particularly, for a companion, whether an intimate one or just a friend that is part of their bubble?
I think the situation in Melbourne is problematic because when this first happened, we were all in it together. So the whole of Australia was in the same position. And so there was a camaraderie and there was an evenness. I think it's particularly hard for people in Melbourne because we're not all in it together. They're on their own with it at the moment. But in terms of...
I mean, we had people that wrote to us with questions this week talking about having only been in the same room as a couple of people since March this year. I mean, it just seems extraordinary that people have been forced to go on that long without any other human contact.
It's particularly, I mean, it is extremely hard, and I think that that is an issue that needs to be addressed. We had the mental health recovery strategy and plan being discussed, I think, throughout March and April. And while this was happening, it wasn't a debate that was happening on the street. And for those of us who are living on our own going, when's this going to end? When can I touch someone? When can I see my family? And it really came to hit home at Easter when the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, came out and made this announcement to the nation that we should all just stay at home with our loved ones and enjoy Easter with our nearest and dearest. And that left, you know, a large proportion of Australians going, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, how did it make you feel?
That's when it really got lonely for me, I've got to say. That was the moment when I felt estranged from the nation. I felt left out of the national discussion on all of this. It doesn't come close to, I think, what Rosemary discussed with us and alerted to us. But it's that lack of inclusion, I think, that really became a problem. And I think and this was all happening when the mental health strategy was being developed as triggered by a discussion around loneliness. So it really does show that we don't understand the nuances. We don't understand the deeper debates. I would say that for people with disabilities, the issue around the caring system and the way that we have put the elderly off into homes, that has been exposed. So coronavirus has revealed all of these things. We lack the language, we lack the nuanced political discourse to get to the heart of these things. I really hope that we learn that language and we learn it fast, because these issues have been revealed. It's like the scab has been lifted and we are an open wound, and it will stay open and won't heal unless some of these issues are discussed more deeply.
Rosemary, in terms of learning the lessons from all of this, the positive takeaways, I know for you professionally, you're able to attend conferences overseas now, present papers in a way that is much easier than what it was pre-pandemic. Are there positives that you hope to retain from this?
Look, I think there are heaps of positives that we could achieve if we had the will. And Leon's point about how important environment is, and what Sarah said is so correct. The pandemic has exposed the inequality and the discrimination that people experience. And for people with disability, it goes back to what I was saying. It's the segregation and this. I mean, they talk about people with disability as if they're inherently vulnerable, but they're only vulnerable because of the situation that they're in. And they're in those situations because of the inequality and discrimination that they experience, the segregation that they experience, the lack of services. I mean, in mental health, we seem to get the psychiatry, but we don't deal well with promoting peer-to-peer services for people. We seem to get the psycho, but we don't get the social. And I mean, that's a bit of a play on the emergence of the term psychosocial disability now. But we haven't been able to build a community where people with disability are participating, meaningful members of the community. And that will continue to create that disconnect and that loneliness. And so I think if there's any positive to come from this, it's about recognising that inequality and discrimination and trying to address it. And that's the only way we're going to have equitable, sustainable and resilient communities, is if everybody is participating in a subjectively meaningful way.
Okay. Michelle, do you see anything that we're going to take forward as a society that we've learned or changed during this time?
Look, I think especially being the Melbournian here, I think what was really apparent to us here is that the minute social interactions that we would have on a day-to-day basis, that was really taken away, and we really missed those, some people would say small talk or meaningless kind of social interactions, but those things actually do mean something within our social routines, and they do actually add up. And actually that, being taken away actually has highlighted the importance of the minute social interactions, not just,
So more chit-chat at work.
Yes.
Around the canteen, is that what's going to happen?
Yes, exactly. And those things serve a purpose, don't they? They actually do something. They build those, the small talk, has a function and actually opens up, deeper, more meaningful conversations. Almost like a litmus test of, can I actually develop this stronger connection with this person? And those little minute social interactions were completely taken away. And the value of those are, definitely for me, I really value those little moments now since the social restrictions have been implemented.
So, Gus, Leon's not drinking for the moment. He's put in place a whole range of different behaviours. 1 in 2 Australians report feeling lonelier since COVID-19, according to the research that Michelle's working on currently. Do you see clear indicators of how we might be different on the other side of this? I mean, you're talking to people all the time that are going through difficulty. Are there positive signs? Are there growth signs?
Oh, there's definitely positive signs, no doubt, and congratulations to you, mate. I think that's fantastic what you've done, and that level of just looking at yourself and working it out, I wish most blokes could do that, but most of us don't have that ability, so that's brilliant. But yeah, there's a lot of positives to come out of it, and a lot of people actually who are going through a tough time have been forced, if you like, to actually have those vulnerable conversations, and they're now getting the help that they need because people just don't realise what people are going through. Just under the surface, a lot of people in this country are going through real trauma, but for whatever reason, we're told to bottle it up and shove that emotion back down. Don't be the whinger. Don't let people know how you truly feel. It's actually forced a lot of us to have those conversations, or we can't hide it as well because we can't get away. So all of a sudden, it's out there and you're much healthier not bottling it up. So that's good. And for me, I mean, just being at home with my family was immense and fantastic. I couldn't ever do the Scrabble boards or anything. I realised my son is a bit of a cheat when it comes to board games and so forth. So I worked out a few things amongst my lot.
Rooted out the cheats in your life is great news.
Exactly.